Lemon though. Oh yeah. La. So the Dorje Chang Thoma eh.
karan jobe gam chela gam ja lo dan trawara chenjela nam to ngo chu poro som ba che ya ma ni che ya cha wa la manga ro pa la cha ve con chen la con de ye me to pa la chen che wa con do yan tha la ma ta ra me che je pa la lo che sa da lam che yan te ra do dorje compagno to sho sanje che da so je cho na la chan cho pa dane cha sanje da ge jen so je pe sanam do la pen ja sanje do para sho sanje che da so je cho na Gyamtso Bardor Dane Jasan Dake Gyamtso Jebe Sanam Dola Penjara Sangyen Domara Sho Sanje Chudon Soje Chona La Gyamtso Bardor Dane Gyamtso Dake Gyamtso Jebe Sanam Dola Penjara Sangyen Domara Sho Samjen Tam Dewa Dam Deve Jodan Dhamara Donghara Dan Donghara Je Jodan Tawara Jurje Donghara Me Dewa Tamba Tam Mendawara Nyere Chadan Nyendan Onyam Chembola Nebara Juro Je Semjen Tamje Dewa Deve Jodan Dambara Jurje Donghara Dan Donghara Je Jodan Tawara Donghara Mebe Dewa Tamba Mendawara Nyere Chadan Nyendan Tonya Chembola Nebara Churo Je Semjen Samje Dewa Deve Jodan Dambara Churje Donghara Dan Donghara Je Jodan Tawara Mebe Dewa Tamba Mendawara Chuje Nyere Chadan Nyendan Tonyam Chembola Nebara Churo Je Dada Semjen Tamje Lo Chusan Do Chenje Labdo Soro Chulamdo Dawara Chenje Labdo Lam Tupa Sevara Chenje Labdo Sa Tupa Yeshe Son Chawara Chenje Labdo Soro Dada Semje Sa Lo Chuson Dawara Chenje Labdo Soro Chulamdo Dawara Chenje Labdo Lam Tupa Sevara Chenje Labdo Tupa Son Chawara Chenje Labdo Soro Dada Lo chu son do wara chen je lab do sa. Chu lam do wara chen je la. Lam chu pa se wara chen je lab do. Chu pa yeshe son cha. Chen je lab do so ro. Sava Gyamtso Chudan Chujin Neloi Manora Vara Chigin Zinen Chembe Yeshe Rosso Yelai Kunge Bardor Wa Refuge Dorje Shavlan Gochan Sarai Pande Save Lama Rinpoche Dage Chevara Pende Denyon Gadin Chembe Gone Jezon Kosong Toge Ngodo Zado Lanja nama samala kadu delik sene kya teni namkan tata nyambe semje tamje la name pa yang tapa zobu sanje ke koma tapar cha tate chadola tambe chu samu shogi nyi nyambe ta kono chanjo chodo to jene seno nang ta tade kang sembar chabe chu ne ta Terchen Barway Dorje ke teni lamme ke nanjur teni rigdon dorji tholo tari shoyanda bo teni tende chongari teni tela chetan kita lama tatub ke songna seninge khong ke thola jik pha jik kewa yinte teni leke wang da bo jik ta ngarang thola so song yongare teni naya tambo ngola rigdon dorji tholo mashi be khong la ngarang sashi yabo shogo gundos kare re sena ta lamin nanjoro sewate teni sangha dorje tekpe lam la shope khansa dawo che yina teni pe masipe karchembo che re yore pe na lama sangye lama chu lama pandi dorje chang kunji chepo lama yi lama namla chan salo sene songyo wari te yendu kapsala pe masipe konshu kundu ke ngowa dawo re yore Reta Gyamtso Gyamtso ki chapter sene shugi yore. Te yendo kapsala ngone tane ke karchemonda jela thoyo bari. Pena khara te Guru Rinpoche ke samyene kawa nang debe ke kapsala chetang ke sangha ke kor yongdo te kawa nang ne tene nyama chela ta phurbe ke kawa nang yong kapsala tene phurbe ke saso yongdo Panam Kamla, Teni Mosel, Samek, Jeju Yova Chene, Dende Nana Tatering, Chanan Soke, Lamek Gundin, one sugar yinda, Yedam Gundin, one sugar said to Gapsalatini, and Gade Chegatai, Tadi, Lamek Gundin, Tat say, Chelacatina, one sugar wari. Tadi, Yedam the Gundin, sugar, Senape, Tit Gundin, Tomna, Yavojum Saditini, Yedam Gundin, sugar, said to Gapsala. Teni Jenkor Gala, Yonsu Zoba Tamjete, Teni Jeju Mevarene, Chat Samat Melody Somari, Tate Tabadi, Tatan the Yedam Sene, Ming Mamboching Alansu Yode, Shiva the Tot and Port the Mola Soba, Shimatola Soba Mambochi Yode, Chujon Sene Mambochi Yode. Tong the la yonsu zoba tamjete rita jinkor jansu chada sedita jude ke rik khase chi yona ya rong jinkor ke la khase chi yoba yena ya rong ta kare yoba yena ya te yonsu zoba tamjete ta kora lama sanje lama cho lama pande dorjen chang sedu kapsala tene kora sanje ke rangchen yena ya lama chu ke rangchen yena ya lama Gendu ka ranking yena yang tak pernah lama lanjut de pandawa tende tendo yode tende tak lama na jote pe karchembon da woche de yode tende mixe ke ta tadi ngone tane ngaran so ta lama tamti tangma yang ta de la ngaran so de yode tende ka sala tende ngaran ke yena ya ta sheda genge sho chembo lap to ere sana tende lap to mare ta Terchen Barway Dorje te Shepatum Pagware Dengana Tende Maris. Kare de Sena Ta Pena Jawan Rik Dorje ke Terchen Barway Dorje ke Yansi Sene Kana Wari. Kana ta long sin sabe ke capsula Narana Nuba Yomari, Monshe Yomari, Kanya Yomari, Tim Medicapsula, or Tanget, and take a young city, member Jumnik and the race and the Shogun and the Kanya Yomari. Mepe Jumnia Latin, the Koran, the now so much, Cho Chini, Cho Yin Penanga, Martin, and get corning on the now Santos. One get temper come down with him, not touch on about the Jitogarates and make it loud the castle time, such and a day and the woman Chimato Yen, Kaya, Malubanda was in the child. Mato check a tongue around the June in summer town in Churtan, Jictin, Kanji, ten, Takona, Yellow Tep the Watcher, Mato chicken. One at Tanek, tender with a pando, your name Chani in Yobat and the Mari. All the night on a Tanek, Salam, Namjag, Tini, Yanaya, Teta, Yonkan Madi. All the night, Rodon Tenek, Tini, Yanaya, Teta, Yonkan Madi. Rango Tonson Davo, Tankoala, Manon, some Davo, that Lama cutting Latin, the Chung there was Remato chicken, and Rang and the Chung that was in a Paget home, Sankenda was that, and then I was a radio. Te Indu Kapsula Tati, Ink and Nelote, Sanjay number Sama, the Kakalikana, so Tamato chicken, Kade Tengere Senata, taking Barway Dorje, Namta Mambo, Ching. Setting that was a Yom Kapsula, ya, that Korang and Namta here they can do. They can shana machine at that mango, Toshi machine, Mambo Chazo there. Tonda Ngama, that Koran on a checho, that was here they can do something that was gongere. And then that was going in a take such a rungamadi, Kana Sena. Lama setting take a yontan, Lama setting take a teneg quarter, Dodong quarter. Nupaka got she young like a gasula, thinning and took Davakilla, some dance on then got Kona Pungu Gati, Tag got the Pungo Jabja one that was younger days, Setani, Peter Tonk, I am Mason and I was reading your day. You think tell a 10 that Terchen Barway Dorje, Namta Sugar your day. Then that Terchen Barway Dorje, that's a Refuge Prayer.
Larry?
Take a Namta Sugar your day, Shuna Shuva, that law, Terchen Telatini said that Dembe gave somebody Pemdoga, Gombege, Teni, Tebata, Mugu, Molamda, Sunday. Now I yena Takora, one at Tanegata, gave Tambasing the Simjang Tondal Pegu Yori, Simjang and Rodon, Mato Jeketa, Yang Haya Yoma, the Penata, Simjang Guajamato, but Java gave it Tabi Mays and the Song Yomari. Takora turned the net debate, Gere Mato Jeketel, a loss Shibaji Yomari. Then you tell her, then Temo Kubege, don't you Kasechi, Yoba Yenayang, Teta Bugan the budget and just a manjungari. Penna Temo Kubege, Nupa, just somebody you can. Then the Lieutenant Della, Sechi, Lucilla, Sosan Deva Young somebody top to it. Rinpoche Yoba Yena, Teta de la top to it. Tamachi Matomeva Yenaya, Satan Longe, Chick, Namjanda was Chick, Kana Kansam Chick, Sosuk and Dotna, Sosuk, she tops and I was attending younger days. Ta in the Caps, Te in the Capsula, Te, Tava Tola Yane, Send on Namato Chick, Tang, Donwala, Tani. Not today, going what the Dharma now, starting around the sessions. Telling a mountain in the Kade and that was the shot of the shogins.
Where's the sound guy? Can't see him. Is this working? Is it because I had to move it, otherwise it makes me go cross-eyed. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Please listen with the motivation of bodhicitta, which is the thought that all beings throughout space must achieve a perfect Buddhahood, and that in order to bring that about, you will listen to the profound and holy Dharma. We are concerned here this morning with the Guru Yoga of Terchen Barway Dorje, composed by Terchen Barway Dorje, called the Spontaneous Song of Awareness-Emptiness. Now, I actually wanted Lama Tratup to teach this, not me, because it's almost a little bit potentially embarrassing for me to talk about how great Terchen Barway Dorje was. But through circumstances I can only regard as karmic, the responsibility of teaching this Guru Yoga, as we are going to practice it, begin practicing it on the 10th day of the 6th month, has fallen to me. Now, before going into this specific Guru Yoga practice, I think I should tell you something about the value and importance of Guru Yoga in general. Guru Yoga is extraordinarily important for all Vajrayana practitioners. We have many sayings about this, such as the Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, the Guru is glorious Vajradhara, the Guru does everything. We regard our gurus as actual embodiments of the three jewels, as overlords of all mandalas and all Buddha families. To give you an historical example of the importance of the Guru, when having given his disciples many different empowerments, Guru Rinpoche bestowed a Vajra Kila or Vajrakilaya empowerment. In the process of doing so, he caused the mandala of deities to appear in the sky and to be visible to all who were receiving the empowerment. And at that point, he asked his disciples gathered there, "Do you wish to receive this empowerment from me, your Guru, or from the deities themselves?" Some of them, because of their devotion to Guru Rinpoche as their personal Guru, said they would prefer to receive the empowerment from him, even though they could actually see the deities. Others thought, well, we receive empowerments from him all the time. I've never seen this before, and said that they wanted to receive the empowerment from the deities. As soon as they answered that second way, the deities disappeared. And in fact, those who chose to receive the empowerment from the deities ended up not receiving it at all. In that way, we regard the single figure of our root Guru as, in a sense, more important than all yidams. We have loads and loads of yidams, peaceful ones, wrathful ones, female ones, male ones, and lots of Dharma protectors. But we regard all of these deities as nothing more than the display of our root Guru. Therefore, our root Guru is the overlord and embodiment of all of them. Our root Guru is the essence of the Buddha, because he fulfills the function of the Buddha in our lives. He teaches us Dharma, therefore his speech is the essence of Dharma. And for us, he is the foremost member of the Sangha. So, Guru Yoga is very important. Now, about this specific Guru Yoga, everyone here has a pure samaya, so I'm willing to teach this. But at the same time, it's a little hard for me to speak about the greatness of Terchen Barway Dorje. Obviously, in teaching the Guru Yoga of Terchen Barway Dorje, I'm going to have to talk about how Terchen Barway Dorje is worth meditating on. So I'm going to have to praise him, which is fine from one point of view, because Terchen Barway Dorje was fantastic, amazing. The only problem is, in my opinion, I'm not. Which puts me in a little bit of a tricky position. His Holiness the 16th Jamgon Karmapa, my root guru, recognized me as the rebirth of Terchen Barway Dorje. I can't argue with that because I don't have any extrasensory perception or supercognition or extraordinary knowledge of past and future lives. So therefore, I have no basis for saying I'm not. Even beyond that, this recognition occurred so early in my life that I don't even remember it. And had I wanted to dispute it at the time, I was probably too young to really speak much. So I've never really been in a position to argue with this recognition. But on the other hand, you need to understand that I don't think of myself that way. I regard who I am and what I do as an attempt to fulfill my Guru's commands. So in listening to this, please keep me and Terchen Barway Dorje a little separate. Otherwise, you're going to think things like, wow, he is boastful, he is bragging, he talks about himself a lot. What we're dealing with here, in my recognition and what is required of me to fulfill the role that I have, that has fallen to me karmically, is like the fine saddle of a horse being placed on the back of a donkey. However, please do recollect and appreciate the appearance of Terchen Barway Dorje in this world exactly 180 years ago, 360-year cycles ago, in the year 1836. And of course, the purpose of this practice is to cultivate devotion for Terchen Barway Dorje. So cultivate devotion for him through this practice as much as you can. If someone has a 100% devotion for the Guru, they will achieve Buddhahood in this life. There's no question, because that's how it's done. If they have less devotion, they'll achieve something, but less. And if they have even a little bit of devotion, they will achieve at least a little bit of something. And in fact, this is not only how we progress along the path, but it's how we can understand how far we have gotten by assessing the authenticity and degree of our devotion. But please keep Terchen Barway Dorje and me separate here. I'm asking you to cultivate devotion for him, not for me.
Tinita Ladab Range Penata Kajanda Botelain, not Ladab Rigon Dorje Tolos and so on. Tinite Lama Dubege, that Choga Tamjek Nan Chodu Juba, Lama Dubeke Choga Seneseki Yode, Dicton Senata Koneke, Kora Toke Sanda Wote, Bena, Tasson Yom Capsula, Detan Nameki, Chur Tomjete, Garanson Davochina, Tabeke Raji, Tembeke Raji, Joa Mepeke Raji, Dark Raji, Yang Raji, Davoching Aranto, Tondeke Yode. Tondeke Yode, the Penata, taking Koneke Toke Gomban de la Caneji Yore Sena, Reton say on Castle and Detan Nameki, Chur Tomje. Tang around soge kande chen hongi yawa te tabu ten den hongri pena sanje ke yena yang around soge kande chen hongi yawa ndabu zikire mato jege sanje ke pet cha samaji kaka da zik ngenzo cha samaji kaka da thong soma yena sanje te kora tu sum sa zikire tegim was o ta tenda bode kora rek se de kapsala data tame ki cho samje te ngaran so ke ka rekwata to thongre te ta tong yom ka se yom ka kapsala te thamje chang tong je da me pe ke rangi me ta pe rangi njor ke rangi demba mato pe rangi che la zik pe ki chane ta kora ri tong se de khone ke thok ke tok se ka ri ma da bote thar jong to song yom ma dang dorje ke thol se yom kapsala te ni na na song be ke sik Tela, Kora Tenetan, Rodonga, Kwan, Chebat, Papa, Songa, the Tabuke, Somba, Kanye, but the Tomjetea, Tegasa, Kat Devoki, Gonda, Wachikta, get a Himbu Gonda, Wachini, Songa, Yabata, Maimpa, Dorje Toller said the time, Joa Mepa, Konike, Zapa Tenle Kare, Yova, the Tomjete, Dorje Tavon, Joa Mepeke, on Zing Pajanji, tell a Tunamian, Yova Mepichan, Dorje Tolos and Takora, Torjona Gomba Kare Yopeke, Tone Song Java, Kora Ranking, Tungi, Yontinda, what the Torjon the Song Java de Mato Tanganasa, Hingan Kenda, what he nothing, Relata, Salata, Cholata, Shinglata, the Nipe, the Beijing and Damambo, Jackie Jane, Yangat and Zevozoko Yovade. Taba Main, but Tone, then it is no dodgy tolos and took a toxic Kase Yoba the Tomje Tayang, and Jovame Patang, then Dorje Tabotang, Tenela Yenayan, Jovame Pat Dorje Tabotang, Sona Yenayan, then Tella Samlo Mambo, Tan Hingan King Zog, Gobatabo Main, but Jake, Torjung Gone Sonya, Yimbe Chena, that is no dodgy tolos and Tansen and the Teta was pure.
What Jung Tone, some
and never on the Huro. Jadang dig Kajanda.
Now, for those who are following in the book, both the actual liturgy and the commentary are in the Treasury of Eloquence. The liturgy is on pages 241 to 244. The commentary, which contains all the words of the liturgy, is on pages 245 and following. When studying the commentary, the words that are in italics are the words of the liturgy. So you don't need to flip back and forth when following what Rinpoche says in the commentary. Now, before beginning to look at the commentary, which was also, of course, written by Terchen Barway Dorje, we should look at the title of the Guru Yoga itself. Because as is the case with good titles, it tells you quite a bit about the actual practice. And it is called The Spontaneous Vajra Song of Awareness-Emptiness, a gurusadhana. Gurusadhana means a means of gaining attainment. Gurusadhana is a means of realizing the guru, or otherwise put, a means of gaining realization through meditation on the Guru. Therefore, of all types of sadhanas, Deva sadhana, Dharmapala sadhana, and so on, the most important is gurusadhana. Now, what is meant by awareness-emptiness? Of course, in a generic sense, we could say that awareness-emptiness is the nature of mind and so on. But there is something very important about the use of this title in this context, as you'll see when you study it. Awareness means to be aware. Awareness can be aware of itself, can be aware of other things. The importance of the word awareness in this title is that it points out that Buddhas see what we see. We often imagine in a cartoonish way that Buddhas see something better than what we see, that Buddhas inhabit a different reality. But if that were the case, if Buddhas didn't see what we see, if Buddhas weren't aware of everything of which we are aware, they would not be omniscient. They would not be omniscient of past, present, and future. And in fact, they would be useless to us. They couldn't communicate with us. They would have no function. But they're different from us in one way. While they see what we see, they see it as empty. Buddhas see everything, but they see the unreality of everything, the selflessness of everything, the emptiness of everything. So, in a sense, you could say that the subject of this Guru Yoga is how Buddhas see, or how Buddhas experience. How do they experience? Awareness-emptiness. The liturgy, which is in verse, is called a spontaneous Vajra song. Now, what does spontaneous Vajra song mean? Vajra here means that the words themselves are more than mere clever poetry. The song was composed spontaneously or naturally as an expression of Terchen Barway Dorje's realization of awareness-emptiness. This is very different from ordinary poetry. When people write poetry, they are making it up. They think about it. They look around. They look at beauty in the natural world. They look at mountains and rivers and oceans and sunsets and rainbows and pretty clouds and flowers and animals and whatnot. And then they write about these pretty things, usually stuffing their verse full of arcane metaphors, so obscure that even if it's in your native language, you have to look them up in a dictionary of poetic metaphors. That is not what this is. This is something entirely different from that.
Penata, a ranking Yamyonda would you charge by us? Penata, so you get in your Savalam, read the Jingoja Chada. Yamarik Dorje that Lineage dollar never come down with you. Then on a Tanek in the Dechene, Sobaki Goni, Yamyonda was in Arana College on Sena. That was la Chena was someday, most la Katina, Zig de Vanabundos. Then they get sour that was in Arana young with no. There's some the Mazi by check it that lower the cat nine that was checking. That take a message tell a Jejume because then Hina Pupa Dabjan that were young and dogs. Kade de Sena, Naranga Kamo Sugar Capsula, Namango, Sugar Wandas, Namango, Sugar Yosa de Tate, took a Texas, Mando Bandavo Jones.
Na mobo sonsen.
Nga, nga.
Oh, nga.
Nga dogging, nga digging, etching, singing that one, Ngama, Sugar Yosa de. Nyama Chela took on takes and some big number that was in. And then they get you get to go carrying. Nga san ne zogju meba nga chembo ta kun de kharin ina nga ma to samju men kin sen ka ji phep song tene zong de ya kamo sho go ba yena nga singe te le gun do was de kan da men da le to nga le gun do te nga singe de san ne zong me ju man da bo tene sem gu ting na ko nga singe de kan to men ne wan da bo ta tene che te la pe ma se pe to zong go ba nga ti ke ko te la ka de ina Take down the governor was in the Hook Chamber Property Wanda was younger dogs. Then the penna, they changed your link about that, like your capsule, took my day, Wanda was young day. That summer can somebody say your day. Then he had Yugi Yode, my Yugi.
That took a jingle.
Yugi Yode. Then he bet the dog what jaggy or son, then he dog what on the Tawaka called the ya.
Yeah, correct.
That table. Turn the jaw on the Simon though.
Oh,
And I did it though. That and our mambo, none they were cap the show days. That and they jail a tongue up, tongue or but you the better tin, do the corners and John talk and the sick dignity. Tells it the death star butter to cocoa.
Sugi say. Oh, choling.
Not songs. There's the time butter to go cora. Pay on that you call. Pay massive Hiwain, Turain, don't know that what you saw. Call Chilla then and Yanda Chubaso. None of them church the mother. Dodo Yan the Yamo corner bear, and get the da, son pepsons. Bear massive bucket, their pepper take a sassy, and that was his journey. One at
Sunken choling.
Choling and somebody. Jatang and Alaman Yamo Chamber your days. When it is someone number. Kondo Sabo, Kondo Copa, the Hook Chamber Young Age, Yorde. Yorde the Tini, Zone de Pena, Taki Tango Vandavo. Semate, Sajo, Semte, Soso, Jungo Vandavo, and the Johnsons, stay in the capsule and one egg. Torjonke, Chetang, Soso, Leg, Sabo Lama singing take. Tula Son Yom capsula, Tella, Yenda Mandava, one tanege. Cha saman gone joke part de la ta, Kona, Gon Yabandavo, Pada Yabandavo, Tende Sonia Yoris. The Sosuki Yamyonda.
That don't know Logini, Refuge Dorje Cordon, choling a cornier. Suppose on a mato.
That in Choja Limanda watching, that woman number because that was Lama Yona Menado. Tarik with Dojan Dawajana, and I saw Lama Yona Menado.
I'll tell you something about gurus from my own experience. And I was frequently given a proof by His Holiness, the 16th Jawang Gampopa, my own root guru, that he saw everything about me, inside and outside. And the remarks that he made to me that revealed this are things that I will never ever forget. It seems, based on one thing he said to me, that I had gotten into the habit of using the word I or me, a lot. And presumably talking too much for his taste about myself. Because one day he said, as if just making a casual remark, there are some Kaju Tulkus who only talk about themselves, who begin every sentence with I. Well, when he said that, of course, I was left unable to comfortably use the word I in his presence. Another example concerns one of the current incarnations of the Terchen Lingpa, who was the root guru of Terchen Barway Dorje. And so I have a strong guru-disciple connection with Chokje Lingpa in every lifetime. Now, the Chokje Lingpa incarnation of whom I'm speaking is Choling Dewe Dorje, the son of Tulku Rinpoche, who was living at Rumtek the same time, part of the same time that I was. And as is not uncommon with incarnations of Chokje Lingpa, the people at Rumtek called him crazy. He would do things that were unconventional, but I think they were almost miraculous. For example, when performing a reversal ceremony, he would put the tormas on his shoulders while playing the drum, the damaru and bell, and the tormas wouldn't fall off. I think if the fact that they didn't fall off says something. Anyway, one day, Choling Rinpoche saw me heading to study with Trungpa Rinpoche, and I was carrying books, texts, you know, in the most proper manner, holding them up high and looking very good. And he saw this from his window, and he remarked, quoting from Junggung Lodra Tai's Calling to the Gurus from Afar, outside, he looks like a tranquil Dharma practitioner, but inside, he is a roiling sea of kleshas. And to put it bluntly, that was an accurate description of my mental state at the time. I have a lot of kleshas, especially a lot of anger, and he saw that. So these are examples of how our gurus, in this case, in my experience, my root guru in this life, and another guru with whom I've been connected in many lifetimes as well, how our gurus can see right through us.
Tepata Mogu Glam in Dogon Kenjere, Mazo Lam Nanjo Tella, Yin, Mena, Kangiteni, and Tandoju Mevajere. Bena Tepa Mep and Manam Laka, be chun Mijete, someone may take by the Yugo home for chicken or send somebody Teta Botella, Tan Dege Lam te Tepata, Mogu Ning gone in Dogo Yore. Ten Roy on the capsula ton Tambeke. Lama ke kosong toki yontin kare yoba de tamje da rangyo ke rangi jo la ta pa da pa ta de yon tobe ke yontin chepara jenda dembe ke chena tenje lama nanjur je tis cherem ta tinane jang de don hingbo sa ba yokso sene songare namo chusum slumi jano kondupe ngo dani chembo lama la Sunday Nyone Sawa Hingberton, Nanjur Junju Chabe, Lam de To, Stade Conque Tambo, de Sheak Cola Song with Capsula, Tellan Dere, Nanjur Jungo, Tellan Dere, Lamen Nanjur Jungo, Nisik Yeva, Sansam so, you said it. Also, just thinking Mambone, Lamen Namjiko, Gahi, Gube, Vena, so that tell a dig nana pena, Lamek Nanjurgo, that music Yava, Sansam Mambo, Jachambo, Javaina, Tate Tabotene, Lord of Member Tamjaki, Koto Yamari, Teta Shepeke, Gubaya Kanyo Mari, so it is. Talodo. Tang Demba, that Lodo Dembeke, Kansan Namjene, young Conale, Tom Topper Joe Bego, Lodo the Demba Samjek and on the young Tayuma Caps and the Tetamjek Tomoto, Dogade, Johnson Tendela Tenia, Yeshe Jabaji Goya, Johnson Kanya Yomade, Counter Gomse Jeremba do some Japanese, that count tato Sosuge Lamen Nanjute None, then in Dambata Gomba, Len Chito Soyake, then Gomse Jeremba do some Japanese, Tayang. Nyamne ji kapsu lu thangbo sang ta nyamne chebe ke kapsu yena ya ta rangin ge le lu ngang ta mai pa lu thangbo la sang wa ta nga ge don yong we kapsu ya nga ge ko ne dam be ke kapsu la sa la ta ban dam ba ta ye tang ye tang tang sang ye wa le ye tayang nyabe go tabane mai patene nawa chendo le ja se patene tang sange tabe go ni tene tang sange wale ta te tabe go ne lunga ye sam te tabe jolam na ten tene nyam so len go ge ma to che ge tene lun te batang tene khan don yom ka so la tene tabje masra wanda botang Nyanyup Chelo Gomlo Tomla Tangi Tegas Kora Lamana Jojan Tambayin Singedabo Gombayin Singedao Ta Nyanyup Tabuki Goni Tetabo Mayimpa Chelo Gomlo Tam Mayimpa Gomja Sawa Tang Pe Temba Tang Yimi Jingam Nyom Selemba Chavo Sinisongaris Ta tetaba nyam salen yom ke kapsula te la hwandon dowa tangbo nguye hwandon dowa nguye ye sam yope ke gone ta tangbo hwando te la yang ni je tangbo ta yewa ni yope ke tangbo yapson dowa ne namo se ta tangbo range Donja Namkala, Javion Dabo Gomne, Tenitella Namo, Sena Shechawa, that Chansalo Sevaridor, Namo Shechawa. Lama Concho Sumla, Gosum Kubachembo Chansawas, Teni Lama Tang, Tate Tabe Lama Tella, Teni, Kora Yons Zobata, Kora Concho Sum, Dupe Ranjin Chen Samba Yena Yaron. Tene lama chela konjo konduge ngola samba yena yaron konjo somge kordeva samba yena yaron te ta tonda la lama ta konjo som la gosum kuba chembe gone chansa wa tang ton tomba ransem yene sanje landamba o ta ton tomba ransem yene kora sanje yimba la ton tambe ke ngola rang semte yene sanje yimba la yimba ta dundamba o tene ranke ripa kechik ma yene jewa me pa ne nya che ta ta be ke chela sewa yena ta tela namo nya chi sanje jome nandesong sen yaware ten du kapsula tene pena teda ke ton na joje yolen deba Nande da somba me payang tape ge chu tokso ringor tongba tang ringor tongba rangdor rigbe ge kora rigbe ge ngola tongba tang rangin ge thoba ta dosin ting do kawa papa tar somo ge kapsala ta tokso kanyin ba te thamche la Tanje Kondi Hubata Dolandelan Deo Sambeke Gone, Tane Ngaransoke, Tropeke Lota with the Tawany and Mepa, Dot Sabuke Tendola, Kawa Payoma Capsula, Dotin take a ranking, Kawati Tamji Yondo, Pet Takendola, that are now I get Tokso Tan Chaya Kandechi Yobayana, Te Tamje Te. Now Gendo Tomba, the Tong Gendo, now we're hanging a tele los Yubagata, Santic number Davokanya, Pena, Tola Meba Davotella, Tasson Bandas, Power Kawa Papa Tal Riton, Chancho Sem, Sempa Shen Sen Taba Samo, Tata Don Chanjuk Simpson, the Tatela Sen Taba Sam de la Serio days. Nande Song sing it. Samo de Tabu Jabul Jabja Jobje so mimic Pengan souls. Tanya Basem Jabala. Rendo.
Let it.
There's no chance of some Gyamtso ne, static significant those one. Tanya Basem Jabane, Datang Simjin, Yumijabota, make you Chul Trobatan Dabe, Tona Melamje, Dayon Tab, Nyomomba Sour, Nyomompa, Sajeta Tava Hibarchavos, that they call it.
In a shagimbe.
The Gassari.
Bata Batang such a test, sugar.
The narrow.
The Gorem de Birche Jungit Seki Gorem da Injig Gorem. That's Kakayo. So the commentary, again beginning on page 245, is called The Fully Illuminated Essence, a brief guide to the ultimate Guru Yoga of devotion. Now, the key words here are devotion and ultimate. The essence of the practice of Guru Yoga is devotion. Devotion is a type of faith. And without devotion, the practice of Guru Yoga is nothing. There's nothing being cultivated. What is being cultivated in the practice of Guru Yoga is devotion for the Guru. Just as without faith in general, it's impossible to develop any virtues. It's said that a person without faith is as unable to develop virtues as a burnt seed is to produce a seedling or shoot. Now, this is called the ultimate Guru Yoga of devotion. Ultimate means the real thing. It really works. Doesn't mean hard to understand and arcane or bizarre. It means the real thing. It comes down to the actual point. This is called the ultimate Guru Yoga of devotion because if you practice it with devotion, you will be able to duplicate within you all of the attributes of Terchen Barway Dorje's body, speech, mind, qualities, and activity. In other words, ultimate here means the real thing. Because Guru Yoga is the essence of all Dharma practice, the commentary is called the fully illuminated essence. Because the commentary explains that practice, it's called fully illuminated. And because the commentary is quite short, it's called a brief guide. The commentary begins with a single stanza of invocation. Namo, which means I pay homage. Guru, great embodiment of all the infallible refuges of the three times, I pray to you. Terchen Barway Dorje here prays to his Guru before writing about a Guru Yoga. In general, the preliminary invocation or homage with which an essay or commentary begins usually specifically corresponds to what is going to be written about. So therefore, since he's writing about the practice based on the understanding that the Guru is the embodiment of all Buddhas, he says, Guru, great embodiment of all the infallible refuges of the three times, I pray to you. I delight in this essence and root of all practice, the path of continuing yoga. continuing yoga here is like what we use the phrase continuing education. What is called a continuing practice is what's often translated into English as a daily practice. In other words, this Guru Yoga is designed to be something that you can do without great difficulty or hardship as a regular practice throughout your life. It's not something that you just have to do in some kind of locked retreat or cave. And then he begins the commentary by telling us what he is not going to write about. Lengthy expositions of the nature, definition, varieties, and levels of Guru Yoga are hard for non-intellectuals to understand and are unnecessary, since intellectuals will understand these things through study of the liturgy alone. In other words, he's not writing here for intellectuals, and he makes this remark to put us at our ease. Although this is extremely profound, he wants us to know that he is not writing here to impress anyone, nor is he writing only for especially smart people. The practice of Guru Yoga depends on devotion, not on how smart you are. He says if you are a smart person who wants to know everything, then you will know everything just by reading the liturgy. And if you're not somebody who wants to know everything, then explanations of everything are going to bore you anyway. So he's not writing about that. What is he writing about? Since intellectuals will understand these things through study of the liturgy alone, I will therefore provide here only a concise guide to the meditation. So he's telling us, I am not going to talk about the theory behind Guru Yoga. I'm going to tell you how to do it. Then he begins. When you practice, straighten your physical posture. In other words, when you're doing any kind of meditation practice, including the Guru Yoga, sit up straight. Don't slouch or slump. Because when you slouch or slump, your mind becomes torpid or distracted or both at once. Keep your speech clear and pure. So that means while you're reciting the liturgy, don't combine the liturgy with songs you heard on the radio or casual conversation. You're not supposed to talk while you're doing a practice normally. But although they do when they practice in groups, but here he's saying not to. And your mind cheerful and lucid. You know, don't practice with resentment. Don't do it just because you've told yourself you have to do it. Be cheerful. Do it because you want to do it. And be lucid. Don't approach the practice so that you just recite it by rote, but pay no attention whatsoever to what you're saying. Free of torpor, vagueness, physical slouching, insincerity, and distractedness, maintain a clear recollection of the object of meditation. Torpor is a physical state. Rinpoche said that torpor is when you're physically tired, and that makes your mind unclear. It's not like you want to be torpid, but you're tired. Vagueness is when you're not physically tired. You could be awake, but you're just not that interested. So you just kind of let your mind, well, whatever. Physical slouching, hopefully doesn't need to be explained. Insincerity is when you chant it, but you don't really buy it or believe it. In other words, you chant this stuff that says, yeah, you're the greatest guy in the world, but you don't actually believe it. Yeah, they just say that. How long is this going to take? And distractedness is obvious. So instead, maintain a clear recollection of the object of meditation. This is a meditation practice. So when reciting the liturgy, and it's not a complicated meditation. So when reciting the liturgy, keep the image, the main image in mind. Of the three parts, the preliminaries, the actual thing, and the conclusion, the first is the preliminaries. Every Dharma practice has a beginning, middle, and end, like everything else. There are two of these, of which the first is taking refuge. Okay, now, as we go through the words from the liturgy, as I mentioned earlier, the translator mentioned earlier, the words from the liturgy are in italics. Now, what makes this a little bit tricky, or made it a little bit tricky for me to translate, and therefore a little bit tricky for you to follow, is that the order of Tibetan and the order of English are not the same, unless you translate into Tinglish, which hopefully is not done anymore, but was done for many years. So, because of that, you'll notice that words will be explained before other words that come before the words that were explained before the words that come before those words. Is that clear? Okay. So the preliminaries here occupy a single stanza, and it begins with Namo, which means the same thing it meant at the beginning of the commentary, I pay homage. Namo means that you prostrate to or salute your guru and the three jewels with great respect of the three gates. That means, obviously respect is mental, but you articulate that respect verbally by saying Namo, and physically by not slouching and joining your palms together or whatever is appropriate. It also expresses devotion for your mind, which in absolute truth is the primordial Buddha. Now, this Guru Yoga is one in which the emphasis is on recognizing the inseparability of your guru's wisdom mind and your mind. So using the image of and your devotion for your guru as a way to meet your own mind. So therefore, everything that is said about the guru is also true about your mind in and of itself. So therefore, you are paying homage not only to the guru, but to your mind, which in absolute truth is the primordial Buddha. Now then, the first line therefore says, I take refuge in the single Buddha, the only Buddha. Your primordially unborn momentary awareness is the single Buddha. Primordially means that it has been there it has always been there. There was never a time when it wasn't. Unborn means that it didn't start. No, there was no moment at which your mind came into existence. There's no such thing as a new mind. Momentary awareness, because here we're not talking about the deluded mind, but the mind itself, or primordially pure awareness. Momentary means that awareness only experiences the present. Deluded mind can think about the past, can think about the future, and can think about the present. But awareness experiences the present. Now, in the case of a Buddha, they experience the past, present, and future as the present. That is how they experience because Buddhas don't have diluted mind. They only have vidya, or awareness. And so your primordially unborn momentary awareness is the single Buddha, the only Buddha, because it's identical to all other Buddhas. There is no Buddha who is different than that. Doesn't mean that there aren't lots of individuals who've become Buddhas, but there is no Buddha who really, when push comes to shove and you reduce that Buddha to their essence, is anything other than what is already in your own mind. So therefore, it's not just the Dharmakaya, it's the innate Trikaya. Your mind's emptiness, lucidity, and infinite variety are the actual three bodies of all Buddhas. The fact that you can't find your mind because, and we have to be careful here, if you say that not finding the mind is seeing the Dharmakaya, that's not quite true. But the reason you can't find your mind is because it is the Dharmakaya. But it's not just empty, it's also lucid, it knows. Everything is empty, but what makes a mind different is your mind knows. That's why we call it mind, or cognizance. That's the Sambhogakaya. And the fact that it doesn't just know one thing, doesn't just know itself, it can know anything it can experience, that's the Nirmanakaya. So that is the three bodies of all Buddhas, therefore that's the only Buddha. Your own mind is the only Buddha. Now, normally we take refuge in the three jewels, and we do so here as well. So the Buddha is, I take refuge in the single Buddha. We also take refuge in the Dharma, which here is called the inexpressible speech of nada. Now, nada is a Sanskrit word that means sound, but when we use it in Tibetan or English, we're using it stipulatively. Does everyone understand the word stipulative, as in the stipulative use of a word? It's when you use a general word in a specific way that is not its only meaning. For example, when we say awareness here, we are using the word slightly differently than we use it in colloquial English conversation. Similarly, when Tibetans use the word nada, the Sanskrit word, they don't just mean any old sound. They mean the fundamental nature of sound. And that simply is the meaning of the innate Trikaya, which we can talk about, but we're not quite capturing it. We can never capture, we can never really describe the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, or Nirmanakaya. We can never really describe the nature of our mind or awareness. So therefore it says, as the meaning of this is beyond verbal description, it is the inexpressible speech of nada, which is the unspoken, authentic Dharma. Dharma has to be talked about in order to communicate it, but the true Dharma cannot be communicated, cannot be described, can only be realized. So therefore, the Dharma in which we truly take refuge is the inexpressible speech of nada, the Dharma which can only be realized by an individual. Now, we also take refuge in the Sangha. In the Mahayana in general, we take refuge in bodhisattvas, the Sangha of irreversible bodhisattvas who've achieved at least the first bhumi. Now, there's a tricky thing about the English here. Tibetan, especially when it's versified, as it is in this case, can have many different meanings in most cases. And when you translate it into English, you have to make a choice. So you try to find the word in English that includes the most of the meanings. In this case, when you read just the Tibetan, Gyamtso, you think of bodhicitta, not bodhisattva. But the commentary specifies Gyamtso Sempa, bodhisattvas. But it kind of has the meaning of both. Because just as Buddhas do not exist as anything other than the nature of our mind, bodhisattvas are not other than the nature of a bodhicitta, absolute bodhicitta. So if you practice this in Tibetan, as we will next month, you'll be able to maintain the sort of cognitive dissonance of having these two ideas. In English, you have to choose bodhicitta or a bodhisattva. But he explains it. Thoughts in the presence of awareness are self-liberated in emptiness, like snow falling on a hot stone. So here, he's using the word bodhisattva to mean the internal bodhisattvas of liberated thoughts. Bodhisattvas are the partially awakened beings in the entourage of a Buddha. Thoughts, or mental arising, semjung, are in the entourage of our awareness. So when your awareness is lucid enough to recognize the nature of thoughts, to see through thoughts, they are self-liberated. You don't need to, the awareness does not need to look at each thought separately and fix it or dissolve it or try to recognize it. So therefore, he gives an analogy like snowflakes falling on hot stone. Now, to explain the analogy, snow or ice is often a metaphor for the rigidity of samsara or delusion, and water, which is of the same nature, for the awakened experience of the same thing, which is like recognition. So the heat of the stone represents the lucidity of your awareness. Just as every snowflake that lands on a hot stone, without the stone having to think about it or do anything, is simply going to melt. In the same way, when your mind is in a state of awareness rather than delusion, every thought will be self-liberated, because the thoughts are nothing more than the display of awareness, so therefore they liberate themselves, but only if you're in a state of awareness. So therefore, these thoughts, he says, we therefore affix the label bodhisattva, heroic mind, to awareness-emptiness within the state of not conceptualizing the sources of refuge, the person given refuge, or the giving of it. In other words, when you take refuge in the single Buddha, that is the nature of your mind, the inexpressible speech of nada, which is that same inexpressible state which can't be described, and awareness-emptiness bodhisattvas, you are taking refuge in your own true nature. Therefore, there is no refugee and place of refuge separate from one another. Therefore, since there is no person taking refuge and person giving refuge separate from one another, there is no actual taking of refuge. That is the ultimate way to take refuge, where the person is taking refuge in their own nature. As the Buddha said, the ultimate refuge is one's own mind, and therefore it's not refuge in the conventional sense. Nevertheless, we take refuge in that. So that's the first half of the preliminary. The second one is the generation of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, as always, is the resolve to bring all beings to liberation. I will dispel, not I want to, but I will. It's a promise, it's a vow. The mirage-like bewilderment and dream-like kleshas of illusory beings. I and all beings are like illusory people. We are like the illusions created by an illusionist, a magician, a stage magician, or hypnotist, except that we are conscious and think that we're real. And the illusionist is ourselves. Our bewilderment, our delusion, is like mistaking a mirage as water. The problem is not what we see, as Rinpoche said at the beginning, but what we think it is. There's nothing wrong with seeing a mirage on the road. The problem is if you act inappropriately because you think it's water. So, because we mistake a mirage as water, we give rise to kleshas. Attachment, seeking the water where we can't find it, or aversion, avoiding what we take to be a pool in our path, which is unnecessary. So our kleshas are also simply produced by our misapprehension of what we see. And our kleshas are like desirable things in a dream. When you dream of something fun or nice that you want, you don't really have it. You don't really get it. And you can't really lose it. But we seem, sometimes we'll wake up from a nice dream and think, oh, I was so happy I got such and such, and now I don't have it. Well, you never had it. It didn't exist. In that way, our kleshas are beyond what is to be dispelled and what dispels it. If the mirage were real, if there really were water there, then we would have to work to dispel our attachment to the water. We would have to do something to dispel our aversion to the water. But because the mirage is not and has never been water, we don't have to separately get rid of our attachment and aversion. If we recognize the mirage as a mirage, and for the same reason, only when we recognize the mirage as a mirage, our attachment and aversion will vanish of themselves, not through suppression, but simply because when you see that a mirage is a mirage, you feel neither attachment nor aversion. So that is the generation of bodhicitta, and that completes the first of the three parts, the preliminaries.
Nipa ngojala thang thok de, sta nipa ngojala thang da thok yori. Jarim sanang tang zorim thaktin yeme ngang ne ten jabala ye daba jending sosa yana jeba solap sendong dava ta ti to wing the one.
Let it.
Te token on it, that ambote rang yedam like cano, not Jason open number, star rang lute, sausage yedam kade, yedam hiva yenayano, tapo yenayano, tai hida kade, po yenayano, mo yenayano, de, tai equara ranute yedam like cano, that yedam like Kano tell a gong yombe kausia, doje hatag lutabo maimpa, $9 tomba, $10 salvage ranking, penna, Namkakin Jason tabo, Jason number tabo, Tanya was Ricky, number tabo, Mato Jigeta, lower than Chimbata, Nankan Yondo, you debugate number tabo, tetabo maimpa, number. Also, the children talking double ne hinge bunny children follow the Tarangana sola, also Nomdo Mambo, Zanging Nomdo Mambo, Yons of not so but Yondo Viode, Tetabuke, also the children talking double ne hinge bunny children follow terrors, that did of him will come from.
The Ningulo Gonja de Consola Sasha Sugar Sari. Chitons and Natsuki de la Namdo Zagadoa or Lepane talk by Trogado Mato, Ningle Trogamaris, they get the Jude number Gomba Dupa, some Lapcos.
Sashi is on what was that.
It is.
Macho Ranjong in your can, Dopping or Pemas, Macho Paranging, showing your can, Dopping or Pematan. Davik then, Yichuji, Niemet then la, seeking Inje, Talimendashing, that's about constant copy and Talimenda, the Huan Talimenda was only said,
Low.
seeking Inje, Talimendashing, Conde Lamson, Kona, Chapjing, Nanton, Sarton, Riton, Yell, Miship Dorje, do something more. Tipa Chenang Malib Deno Namji Mama in the one Namji Mama
inside.
Mama Zembe
Mama Jungkung
Mama Zembe na Chuji Jays that's it that was some jiggy Mama Tava Yimbichana Chuji Jays do some quenching Peme subject someone them but the amount tata to some the Dodon Tenela Para, Machi Batuban de Betusum Kun, Chembege, Guru Pemanjone, subject someone them na, then it don't up say when at that theatre will get that to some get someone them back in Guru Rinpoche take don't up senata, goes up 7 hours, don't up in Bichana. Then Menge Tampo Menge Tampo Chanim cancer not don't so Menge La Tampo Chanim Shonge Ming Ming Kama Tene Quenchap and Mafam Jimmy Church Singe. Some day long and some day long young lay a tommy dunder limba, day kajan lay, flata, candle mingta, but tano gavi, the Terchen Barway Dorje, Ningbungo, Tondo, Tini, Getakozo, and Doganda was the Himbungo, Tondo. Chambe and Dova Pugin, 7, Zomdan Chapa, Dokun, Jod Depa, Devil Dunhatan, Tal, Jugava, Devil Devatan, Denching, Yambe, Gawa Chimbango, Sandala, Semi Yet, Gawa Chimbango, Yadam pushing the chancing follow, Sembe Papa. Cha Yeje, think of that Yedam, Doji Popatan, Shinji Yin, Sambeg Chatola, the name Cha Yebeg Chan, Papa Chancing, Kolo Sembe, Papa, Cha Yeje Dingba, Rick Sumje, Mowon Chembe, Pote Nupe, Radin Samba, Seve, Pemakabu, Cha Yung. Jabji charge Chokara number Conde is Machi Conde is Machi Jing Dani Redo Dedo so Tanhim Lando Tashin Shap Jabo Robert Zabje Yoking Luigi Chuni Oda Janglo Cheji Janglo Cheji Chogo Gad Ranjong Macho Flondo Tang Yontin Yonsu Do Hansi Wand Debe Sawo Peking Mamu Tanga Tipa Seji Non Poka Tuna Dodu Shedele Gobi Chogo Monik Telen Rowan Debe Godek Jango Messin Doba Dorje Tapo So you want top of Daso Namja Purbu Kepala Chinging. That's a part of Gasa and
Mare, ore, Ching, that's on it. Dene de ushala rogira. Oh yeah. Yapuyo. Mompo songumendo de yapo song. Korwa la mompo yore. Tela mompo mendo. So, where are we? Oh yeah. So the second part is the actual thing, the actual Guru Yoga practice, and it has 6 parts. Generation of the support, which means the image that is going to support your cultivation of devotion, within the indivisibility of the generation stage and the completion stage. Now, in this case, the generation stage means the generation stage is clear appearance, so it's an image that you try to make as vivid as possible. The completion stage here means the completion stage is recollection of purity. In other words, the completion stage aspect is that as you imagine Terchen Barway Dorje in your heart, you think that this image is not just an image like any other image, but that the image itself inherently embodies the attributes that each part of it referred to. So, in other words, the generation stage part is the use of your imagination. The completion stage part is your understanding of the meaning of the image. So that is the first part. The second part is the sealing, not the sealing, but the affixing of a seal. The invitation, the 8 branches of gathering the accumulations. In the sutras, there are only 7 branches, but sometimes in the tantras there are 8, as you'll see. Prayer, and then the final part of the main practice, he says, is and recitation of my name. The actual mantra that you repeat is the name mantra of Terchen Barway Dorje. So the first part is the image. The first line says, my body, appearance emptiness, is the rainbow body of a deity. So your body is visualized as the body of a deity, any deity you wish, female, male, peaceful, wrathful, presumably one that you're familiar enough with that you can generate a clear image of it without having to focus on that alone, because you're more concerned with the image of the guru. The reason why you visualize yourself as a deity here is so that you don't approach the practice with a sense of personal limitations and bad feelings about yourself. So first, there are 2 things, that you are in the form of a deity, and that the deity is appearance emptiness, insubstantial, a rainbow-like body of light, like, for example, a hologram or a rainbow in the sky, so that the deity from the outside looks like a deity, so you would imagine it would have the things inside it that people have, but it doesn't. Like a hologram, inside a hologram you won't find intestines and lungs and other bits, hopefully. And so in the same way, the deity from the outside looks perfectly living, but in the inside is just like a membrane of light. Then within the body of that deity, you imagine Terchen Barway Dorje. So it says, it is light and empty form, describing the body of the deity, in my Dharma chakra's center. This means in the center of your heart, in your Dharma chakra. The chakra at the level of the heart, but in the center of the body. Front and back-wise, it's slightly toward the rear, but not much. It's not all the way back in the spine. And left and right-wise, it's perfectly in the center, not to the left like your heart. In the center of your body, at the level of the heart, is what's called the Dharma chakra, or the wheel of things. Dharma fundamentally means things, our objects of mind. So, because that is believed to be the place from which all dharmas of thought are emitted and to which they return. Now, this requires a little bit of explanation, because in the modern world, and especially in the here, we're very, very stuck on the idea that the brain alone is the source of cognizance, including thought. From the point of view of the tantras on which this practice is founded, about which you'll get to much more information later on, what happens in the brain is largely a reflection of something deeper that is happening, or more fundamental, or more basic, that is happening more or less in the heart. Now, there's talk of finding brain matter in various parts of the body and so on, but I don't know about that. But the real thing to understand is, for example, when you have the peaceful and wrathful deities, the wrathful deities who appear in the brain are the display of the peaceful deities who are in the heart. So therefore, you visualize Terchen Barway Dorje not in the center of your brain, but in the center of your body at the level of the heart. On a more general level, we think of the heart as the seat of feeling, and we're concerned here with feeling much more than with understanding. So, in the center of your heart, in your Dharma chakra, the place from which all dharmas of thought are emitted and to which they return, you imagine your faith in the form of the seat on which Terchen Barway Dorje is seated. In my Dharma chakra center, atop the lotus sun and moon of unfabricated threefold faith. There are three aspects to faith. There is awe or wonderment, which is the feeling, the affect of faith. And then there's desire or aspiration. We want to become like the object of our faith. And then there's an aspect of belief. You believe that that thing or that person in which you have faith is wonderful. They're not three different things entirely, but there are three aspects of faith or devotion. There's what you believe about the person, in this case, Terchen Barway Dorje, how it makes you feel, and what you want, So those are represented here by the image. The lotus of aspiration. What makes faith pure, even in the midst of our funky lives, is the purity of our aspiration or intention. Having faith in Barway Dorje is not just thinking he's great, but also wanting to do what he did, wanting to become like him. That's the faith of aspiration. And because that is pure, it's represented by a lotus flower in full bloom. On top of that is the sun of belief. Belief is a cognitive state, so therefore it has the quality of intelligence, wisdom, brilliance, and so on. So therefore it's represented by a sun on top of the center of that lotus. The other aspect of faith, awe, the feeling, is more mysterious. It's not brilliance per se, it's feeling. And that's the moon of awe or wonderment. So by visualizing Terchen Barway Dorje seated in your heart on top of a lotus, sun, and moon, you are visualizing that he is seated on the foundation of your faith. What you believe, what you want, and how you feel. Now, atop that seat is Terchen Barway Dorje. And normally we refer to a great guru as a Vajra holder. But because of how much is said about what that means here, you can't leave it just as Vajra holder even in English. But the next line is a gloss of the ultimate meaning of Vajra holder. When we call a guru a Vajra holder, which in Sanskrit is Vajradhirik, which is why we generally don't say it in English, we just say Vajra holder. What we mean is not just that they are entitled to use a Vajra scepter in pujas or that they know cool stuff about teaching. We mean that they hold or have realized the nature of all things. So to make that clear, it says, atop the lotus, sun, and moon of unfabricated threefold faith, so it can't be that you're telling yourself you should have faith. It has to be there. Is the holder of the unbreakable Vajra that pervades all samsara and nirvana. The only thing that's unbreakable is something that, and what Vajras represent is that which is unbreakable or indestructible. The only thing that is unbreakable is something that is utterly unconditioned, unchanging, that is not affected by causes and conditions. So the only thing that's unbreakable is the true nature of everything. When it's said that Terchen Barway Dorje is the holder of the unbreakable Vajra, holder means that he has recognized that unbreakable, unchanging, true nature of all things. And what is that Vajra nature? Indivisible, appearance emptiness, clarity or lucidity emptiness, and awareness emptiness. The nature of everything we experience is appearance emptiness. Things appear without existing, like dreams. The nature of what we experience, is lucidity emptiness. While being lucid, our minds do not exist. They're empty. And the nature of all of that, deep down, is awareness emptiness. That pervades all samsara, nirvana, and the path. Whether you are in a state of absolute delusion, Buddhahood, or somewhere on the process of moving from delusion to Buddhahood, the nature doesn't change. So therefore, it is all pervasive. Now, the details of his appearance indicate his qualities, which is why earlier it was said that the image is the generation stage, the understanding of its meaning the completion stage. He, Terchen Barway Dorje, does not dwell or abide within either existence or tranquility. In other words, he does not, although he's achieved awakening, he has not disappeared. He continues to appear. But he is not actually dwelling within existence. He looks like us, he talks like us, he acts like us, but deep down he's not like us, because he sees the emptiness of things we mistake to be real. And therefore, he is in nature the actual body of all Buddhas of the three times. Because Terchen Barway Dorje sees things as they are, and because that defines, as we saw at the beginning, as Rinpoche said, a Buddha. They see what we see, but they see it as it is, as empty, as illusory. Because Buddhas, there's no more or less of Buddhas. A Buddha is all Buddhas. Any Buddha is all Buddhas. So if he's awakened, he is all Buddhas in that one person. Not just all the Buddhas there are now, but all the Buddhas of the past, who are still Buddhas, and all the Buddhas of the future who are not yet Buddhas. Because he holds the source of all outer and inner pitakas without exception. A pitaka means a basket. And because the scriptures, when they were collected by arhats at the beginning of Buddhism after the parinirvana of Shakyamuni, they put them in 3 separate containers or baskets, and so therefore we call the Buddhist scripture the baskets or the pitakas, the Vinaya basket, the Sutra basket, and the Abhidharma basket. But he not only has the texts, he holds the source of all outer, which means the sutras, and inner, which means the tantras, pitakas, without exception. He's realized their true meaning. Therefore, he holds the source. The word used in the Tibetan here is mama, which has much the same connotation it does in English. Where does Dharma actually come from? What is the mother of all Dharma? What is the actual source and true meaning of it? That's what he holds. Therefore, he is called the Lord of Dharma. Because he holds the secret, profound treasures or termas of Padma, Guru Rinpoche, who is omniscient of the 3 times, he is his scion or heir. So, Terchen Barway Dorje has inherited what Guru Rinpoche brought and taught into this world. He is the heir. His various names include that with which he accepted the gradual pratimoksha and bodhicitta, karma trinli kunjab mipam jigme chuchi senge, the name given to him in the prophecies within his profound treasures, Topten Dudul Lingpa, or powerful treasure revealer who conquers Mara, and the name given to him by deities and dakinis as found in the colophons of his treasures, Pal Tratungawe Yeshe Terchen Barway Dorje, a glorious, a blood drinker, a great blissful wisdom of joy, blazing Vajra. Now, the next thing, when it starts to describe his appearance, every aspect of how he's imagined goes to one or another of his attributes. The first attributes we're going to look at are the 4 immeasurables. First is compassion. Compassionate, he is the color of a conch shell. In other words, white with a red radiance. So I guess it means more like the inside of a conch shell, but basically he's white with a red gleam. Loving all beings as though each were his only child, he has one smiling face. So he's smiling because he loves. And he has one face because he loves each and every being as though they were the only person he loved. But he loves everyone the same, so it's one face. Joyous, so this is the 3rd immeasurable, joy, with the thought of freeing all beings from causal wrongdoing. Wrongdoing is the cause of suffering, and resultant suffering. Suffering is the result of wrongdoing. And endowing them, us, with causal virtue. Virtue is the cause of happiness, and resultant happiness. Happiness is the result of virtue. He has 2 hands. He has 2 hands because he's doing 2 things. He's getting beings to stop doing the wrong thing and therefore stop suffering, and he's getting beings to start doing the right thing and therefore start being happy. His right hand brandishes a kila marked by a wheel, the combined scepter of his yidams, Vajrakila or Vajrakumara and Yamantaka. His left, in the mudra of protection, holds at his heart the 3 families. The 3 families mean the bodhisattvas who embody the bodies, speech, and minds of all Buddhas. Manjushri embodies, or is, the wisdom body of all Buddhas. Avalokiteshvara, Genrizi, is the speech of all Buddhas. and Vajrapani is the mind of all Buddhas. So therefore, to show that he is inseparable from them, he holds at his heart the three families in the form of the Book of Knowledge. The Prajnaparamita Sutras represent, in other words, Manjushri in the form of that book, marked by the sword of power, Vajrapani, and the white lotus of benevolence, Avalokiteshvara or Chenrati. So what it means, and there's a painting of this in the other room that maybe we'll bring here or something, but the lotus, he's holding the stem of the lotus, the white lotus blossoms, on top of it is the book, and on top of the book is the sword. As he makes no distinction between samsara and nirvana, and is impartial, the fourth immeasurable is impartiality, toward and free of acceptance and rejection of friends and enemies, and is beyond hope and fear and happiness and suffering, he is seated in the posture of regal play or regal ease. And this means that he is beyond any kind of acceptance and rejection. He has long hair and a white skirt because he is unaltered and spontaneously perfect. His long hair represents the lack of pretense, lack of alteration. And the white skirt, white contains all colors of light and therefore represents innate perfection or innate completeness, represents that he is spontaneously perfect. Because all his qualities are fully developed, he wears the dark red brocade cloak of overpowering all that appears and exists. Overpowering can also mean charming. It doesn't mean violently, bullying. It can mean charming or attracting, but basically it's because he can't be fooled. The dark blue coat of subduing the haughty through forceful mantra, the saffron Dharma robe of leading the 6 types of beings to peace and happiness, the green belt of activity, green represents activity, that tames beings, and an approach kila, a kila used as a support in the accumulation of mantras, an approach kila of meteoric iron in his belt as a sign that he has attained the power of force that liberates the vicious. So that brings us up to the discussion or presentation of his crown, which will take some time because it's got a tremendous amount of meaning and so on. So we should probably get the picture if we can. So we'll stop here for this morning and conclude with the dedication and aspirations. Deya tamje zigpa nye tone nipe ranam bamjen shiga naje sepe tsole rowa Deye chewo kun sunam yeshe tsozo sunam yeshe le jongwe damba kunye toba semne rumbo che ma che ba nam che jo che ba nyamba me ba de don den jo che ngen ro tam je semba ganda sa jo ba de da kun je ma lan ro ba je re je zo de dam ga ja gon do Zamje me jon rabo sangaj si je jon da jabe
Thank you.